That's right, it's Keenan here from All About Vehicles, and you're watching the RobMotive YouTube channel.
Well, good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Pretty good here, and welcome to the channel. Hey, before we get started, check that out. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, today what I'm going to talk about, it's kind of the second part of taking a look at the drivetrain underneath the Tacoma up here with the lift on it. Now, it has a 3-2 ready lift, and that's a block and spacer lift. Spacers in the front, blocks in the back, 2-inch blocks in the back. And what I'm looking at here is the drivetrain, specifically the drive shaft. The previous video that I did, check that out. It showed how the differential in connection with the drive shaft works. Now that I have the lift on the truck, it was quite shocking to me. But I've never seen how it actually functions in motion. So I've been told it's normal. I've been told it isn't. I've been told I need to put a drop kit right here on the shaft to kind of even out or level out the shaft, the angle, if you will. Right now, if you can see, it kind of comes down, goes up a little bit, and then goes back down. So that's a different video. What I'm looking at today is how the drive shaft interacts with the transmission at the point where it enters the transmission with the 3-2 ready lift installed. Am I going to get the kind of movement and stuff that I got before, or that I got rather in the rear with the differential drive shaft union? I don't know. We're going to take it for a ride. I have a GoPro set up. You guys can see right here, looking at the point where the drive shaft or the shaft enters the transmission. So we're going to lower the truck, fire up the GoPro, take a ride. I'm going to do some acceleration runs, some hard stops, some normal driving, and then some just takeoffs from a stop. We're going to see if that thing moves around like it did here in the back at the differential. So let me go ahead and get the truck down, and we'll hop in and take a ride. All right, here we go. We're backing out of the garage right here. So nothing too exciting at the moment. And what we're looking at there is, of course, the coupling or the shroud where the front part of the drive shaft enters the transmission. So now we're taking off, just kind of heading out of the subdivision a little bit. You'll see some stops and starts as we go. And what I'm looking at is that area right where the shaft enters that shroud, that silver cup, if you will, to see if there's any separation or anything. There we're at a stop, and you can see a little bit of movement there at the stop. It kind of came out of that shroud a little bit. We take off, and you'll probably see it push in just slightly, but it's a little difficult to tell from the video itself. And now we're kind of just cruising through the subdivision. In a couple of minutes, we're gonna do an acceleration run. Where you should see a quick start up, and then right there you could see a pretty good pullback where the shaft actually kind of comes out of that shroud a little bit, and there we see it again. And you'll see that several times throughout the video. At the end, I did a few hard stops to sort of accentuate that a little bit, I guess, because that's where I saw the biggest movement, if you will, out of that assembly. Now, I think in just a minute here we're going to have a hard acceleration. One way you can tell in the video from that is to watch that cable. You see that cable on the left that's black and then has the heat shielding, I believe, around it, that silver strip or piece. And you can kind of see by the way that flexes what's going on in the truck as far as movement goes. And when you see it bouncing around like right there, that was either a stop or going over some bumps. But it's funny to me how you see much more movement. And notice where I had pointed out
where the shaft enters that cup, that silver cup or shroud, how much separation you get, or how far it pulls out at times. We just saw probably about, I guess in total, maybe a half an inch or so outside of that shroud. And you can see it right there a bit. It's kind of pulled away a little bit as we drive at normal speed. This is just cruising down the road at probably around 55, 60 miles an hour. And you can see as we hit bumps, that cable on the left is bouncing a bit. But one thing that you may notice, especially as compared to my other video where you could see a lot of movement out of the universal, or the differential rather, and where the shaft met in the rear, you could see tons of movement there as we would hit bumps and stop hard and accelerate, and that is still happening in the rear. But you'll notice you don't see any movement in the front, either at the assembly point or where the shaft goes into the transmission. I haven't seen anything move there at all. Everything is fixed rather tightly, and we're not seeing anything jump around. So for me, that's a great sign, especially now you can see how far out the shaft is there in that coupling. And right there was a little bit of a stop. You're going to see that, as I said at the end of the video, a lot more where I'm intentionally taking hard stops. At any point until we get to there where you see that move, that's just normal acceleration and normal braking. I'm not doing anything to accentuate that at this point. Now back to movement. As I said, you don't see the transmission moving around at all. There's no flex, there's no jumping around, there's nothing at all happening with the transmission, which I think is a good sign. Again, especially compared to what's going on in the rear. Given how much movement there was back there, you would think that that would transfer all the way up to the front through the drive shaft, even though there are joints in it, of course. And you would see some movement up there if it was an issue. And to me, this just kind of solidifies, I guess, that there isn't an issue in the front at all because of the lift, which would make sense. You know, you have the short part of the shaft from the transmission to where you get to the joint in the center, where it joins the back part, or the rear shaft, if you will, or I'll call it the second part of the shaft. And it doesn't transfer through. It doesn't push forward. You're not seeing, other than a little bit of separation at that cup assembly point, you don't see any other pushing or pulling as a result of the differential and the rear part of the drive shaft flexing and torquing, if you will. And keep in mind, there is a ton of torque in this whole system. I mean, when you give it the gas and get that drive shaft rotating, you've got a lot of torque involved there, especially when you're taking off. You know, and it's probably at that first point where you give it a lot of gas. There, you see how far out that pulled out? Right there. That was a harder brake. And we're getting to the point now where you're going to see a few of those right there. See that? Right back in. So that kind of pulls out towards the back and then right back in towards the front. Right, here's another. Now, that's something that when I was filming this, I couldn't see or didn't notice in the cab of the truck until after I played back the video for myself. But that's the only point where I see a lot of movement in the front part of the assembly at the transmission gear shaft union, if you will. So, or drive shaft union, I should say. We're going to get another shot of it right there. And that's about it. So, most of the flexing you see here, really, is that cable that's on the left, which has absolutely nothing to do with the lift whatsoever. So, I'm pretty confident in it. I'm pretty happy with the way it functions.
All right, that was the little test. Not a whole lot happens while driving, which I'm a little surprised. Given all that movement in the back, I would have thought we'd have seen a little more movement out of the front part of the shaft. but I didn't. Now, there was one thing that I discovered, as I mentioned in the video at the end, and that was the way the shaft reacts where it goes into the transmission upon hard braking. Now, you may have noticed, and hopefully I pointed this out in the video, right here at this, I guess it's a coupling, I'm not exactly sure, where it goes into the transmission. Just past the silver coupling there, I guess, or cup, whatever you call it, I'm not sure. It did pull out. Maybe about, it looked like in the video to me, about ½ an inch. Something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to see that in the video when I watch it back. But upon hard braking, it did pull out a little bit. Again, I don't know if that's normal because we didn't get a lot of movement along here that I could see in the video. I know it goes crazy back there. But we did have a little bit of separation there. Again, I don't know if that's normal. It certainly is a heck of a lot less alarming to me than what I saw in the back. But again, having never seen either of these function from this perspective myself, I'm not concerned. It doesn't really worry me. It's eye-opening for sure. But the only thing I got out of that, I guess, is upon hard braking, how it kind of separates a little bit or pulls back at that coupling or that joint area. So anyway, I just wanted to take a look, let you guys see. I had some requests. Well, how does it react at the front? You know, where it goes into the transmission. So there you go. You guys can see how it reacts at the front. Leave a comment down below. Let me know, is this normal? I think it's normal, but I don't really have a lot to go on. So let me know. Leave a comment. Anyway, appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on the web. Have a great day. Bye.